Hello, everybody. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the class. Oh, it is up all the way. Okay. All right, we're going to give a couple more minutes to see if anybody else pops in, okay? All right. Oh, it's weird. I've got these images behind me. Maybe I'll just, I don't need this plugged in because I don't need the TV, right? Oh, wait, you need the TV.
Well, you're
I
gonna have,
can follow along.
you're gonna have to share these.
Yeah, I've got them as PDFs.
Okay, well then you won't see yourself once you share the screen.
You're right. It's just weird seeing myself. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Sorry, am I giving you guys all motion sickness here? All right, so we've got a mix of Zoom and a mix of in-person for our class today. So bear with me as we go back and forth here. So I'll do my best if there's a question in class to make sure I reiterate so that you guys can have it answered as well. If you guys have a question, if you guys could please just pop it in the chat below, that would be great. We'll try to get to it. And then, yeah. Okay, so for everybody that's with us via Zoom, I'm going to share my screen. Hello, welcome. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Who's the host? Hold on. We have to figure out how to get the screen share working.
Let me just ask whoever created it.
Okay.
Continue on.
Oh, please. It's weird. My face is up there too, isn't it?
You're like giant.
bad.
She had it lined up like perfectly, and you know when you look in them like
Yeah,
mirrors,
it was-
infinity.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Infinity Andreas. It was very scary for a minute.
Oh, my.
So you have a crazy amount of stuff coming in.
Oh, just all of a sudden it feels like, oh.
Yeah.
a bunch of- Yes, we ran like an ad and then we got responses, so I needed to reach out to them. Nobody answered though.
Okay.
But actually, I composed like an email from, it's in K-Team. Would you go in and now like put an email in from those leads that came in and just send them that like little blurb that I have
Yeah.
later today? How's it going, Andrea?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
good. Today's my son's birthday.
Aw.
He's 10.
Oh, wow.
Is he the baby?
Oldest.
Okay.
Oldest, he's 10.
And
Yeah.
then hold your next one.
7. He'll be 8 in May. So yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah. Double digits.
Double
now.
digits. Yeah. He did not want to turn 10.
He didn't.
Yeah, no, he's like, I don't want to get older. I'm like,
Oh.
Okay, you're doing a good job then.
well, maybe I'm doing too good of a job, right? Like, he's like, I just want to stay here forever.
He's gonna be like 40 and living in your basement.
Oh, I hope not. I'm really not that kind of mom.
That's
Like, I
fine.
love my kids and I want them to be around. I just don't want them to be like
That.
dependent on me. You know what I mean? Like, be around and be with me, and I love that. And be a man.
Go
You-
find your.
Yes.
go do your thing.
Yes, yes. I know my mom heart now is like, no, I want them to stay with me forever. But no, but like in real life,
Like, you know, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right, try again.
Try again. Okay.
I'm liking the greens again. You know, about the orange, Scott, you haven't run into Scott yet today, right?
No.
No.
Oh yeah,
So-
Catholics and Protestants, right?
Yes.
Yes. I do know that.
I'm sure the green, the Protestants were the orange.
Yeah, so my family's Irish, which is why I know this.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay,
So pretty. It looks very professional.
thanks. Okay.
Which we are. Take a picture. Which we are. Let me, well, just in case there was any doubt, I'll make sure she's just not looking like that.
How professional do you want me to look? Should I pretend like I'm teaching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's cute though.
Is it cute? Oh, that's cute. Okay. The participants on Zoom are like, when are you gonna start, woman? For the love. Okay.
Hey, here, see?
Yes,
Oh, all this.
they sure can.
I'm so annoyed sometimes my daughter walks in, like she came in at 11 the other night, I heard her chat with my husband, I was in bed, but I could hear, she talks loud, she doesn't know how to modulate at 11 o'clock at night. So she finally like shuts up and goes to her room. Well, here, she's like on the phone with somebody, like she had to be on the phone with her that whole
Whole
time.
time?
Which annoys me, like, you need to give me a heads up, like.
Yeah, my parents do that. speakerphone all day long, doesn't matter where they're at, in a
Oh.
restaurant, in a shopping center, at their house, it's just
Well,
speakerphone.
she wasn't talking to the person on the phone.
No,
Like, we didn't know, you know. but
Somebody
yes,
was- yeah.
Scott's mom will be like, "Mom."
yes, yes, yes. Is it a generational thing? I don't know. My dad just like doesn't like holding the phone up to his ear, and my mom has followed suit. Whatever. Okay, welcome everybody. All right, so we're going to be talking about hidden risks. We're going to do a policy comparison, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go through the state of Ohio contract to show you some of the differences that are in that, and then we're also going to point out some of the things that are in the Keller Williams contract that are really important for you guys when it comes to the policy and what's being chosen, because your contract for Keller Williams has the enhanced policy, the homeowners. However, several other brokerages, I would say a lot of them out there only have the owner's policy. So I think that this is maybe something really great for you guys to have in your arsenal to show your clients so that they just know, for example, if, you know, somebody's writing a contract for another brokerage, it's their contract coming to you, your listing, then you just know maybe how to share that with your clients and what they can expect. And, you know, you can have some knowledge on that. So, okay. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through the Ohio State contract. So if you guys have a copy of that in front of you, that's great. Or if you can get your hands on it. If not, I did go ahead and I put what page it's on and the lines, just so you guys can use it. What I did was there is the annotated version that your office had sent out. I believe you guys still have this. I don't know where it's at in Dotloop. Maybe I'll have to ask Rich where it's at, but this is the annotated version that was put out. So it does have the notes. Everything's kind of like highlighted in yellow. So, okay. So the first one, I'm just going to go through like some of the important things for you guys to know. Okay. So line 69 through 72 on page 3. So these are for the settlement charges. And the one thing that I just wanted to point out here is on line 70. So this is saying that the seller agrees to pay actual settlement charges incurred by the buyer, including but not limited to discount points, closing costs, documented prepaids, lender's policy of title insurance. Okay, so this is saying that the seller agrees to pay that. So again, this is in the Ohio State, the Realtors Ohio State purchase agreement that they put out. That's a big deal because in the other contracts, basically, the title insurance, even if it is the lender's policy with the owner's policy, it's split 50-50. So that's just a little nuance of this Ohio State purchase contract that I feel like you guys should know. Now, another thing is it's not outrageous. So the amount that we're charging for the lender's title policy on a contract, on a file is only $100. So we're giving the owners their policy, which is if it's up to 150,000, it's $575 per thousand. That's split in half. So it's $288 per half. So if it's a $100,000 house, then each side, if it's split half and half, it's just $288. Okay. Then the buyer's side for the lender's portion is just $100 for the lender's policy. Okay. So typically what it would look like is even that $100 is being split 50-50 by the buyer and the seller. But this contract is seeing the seller's paying it. So again, just want to make sure that you guys know that. Okay. Page 6, lines 256 through 274. This is talking about taxes and assessments. The biggest thing on here, on page 3, sorry. Oh wait, did I skip one? Hold on. I didn't. I'm just on a different page. Hold, please. Yes, that's what it was. C. So taxes and assessments for this one, it says all agricultural use tax recoupment for years prior to the year of closing. It's saying that the seller shall pay that. or give a credit to the buyer at closing. So the thing that's different about this is typically in years past, it has been negotiable and contracts haven't really pointed it out. That's something that I really love that Keller Williams did in their new contract. They also made, and I'll show you guys that here next, they also put a line item for the cultural evaluation because that's a 3-year look back period. Okay. So if that's not negotiated, all of that 3-year liability, let's just say this new owner does not want CAUV on their property, that's a huge tax implication for the buyer. They're going to get a 3-year look back and they're going to have to pay that. If it's a lot of land, if they've been using CAUV tax credit, it's a big hit. It can be a really, really big hit because those CAUV tax credits are huge for people who have a lot of land. Okay, then moving down to line 271. In this area, we do not have short form tax proration method, but if you guys are closing in, let's see here, Franklin County, no, not Franklin County, Montgomery County and Lucas County. I don't know where our audience is at, but those 2 counties specifically, they do use short form tax proration method. So instead of going an entire year back, they're only going back 6 months. Okay. It's a little bit different the way that the taxes go. And so I would say if you're using Title Capture, that's our online platform that does net sellers, net sheets. You'll just choose taxes have been paid for 6 months. And it should give you that correct proration amount. And you can do that whether you're in first half or second half, if you're doing short form. I don't know how many people, like I said, do Montgomery and Lucas counties, but just something of note that I thought was important for you guys. So moving on to page 7, lines 275 and 284. Okay, so lines 275, it's talking about the community development charge. We don't really have a lot of these here, and this is really for like a new build. If a developer comes, and you can kind of think of it almost like an HOA. The builder has got some sort of a community development charge that they want to do, that they're assessing basically all the new homeowners for this new development. Kind of think of it like that. The other thing that I'd like to point out with line 284 for the homeowners association, the reason I like to point this out is because a lot of agents don't realize when it's your listing, it is your fiduciary responsibility to know if there's an HOA for that particular listing. Not all the time is an HOA actually going to pop up in our search. And it is one of the things that we omit from our title insurance policy. So really important, if you are the listing agent, please, please, please make sure that you are finding out from your client if it's in an HOA. We'll do all of the legwork of tracking down, the management company, getting the fees, getting the transfer fee, figuring all of that stuff out. But if it doesn't pop in our search and we don't know, then we don't know. We truly don't know. And then we've had this happen before, where it was a very, very teeny tiny HOA association, but the buyer didn't know and they were caught off guard. And I mean, truly, I say like it was like a $25 a month HOA fee, but for them, it was the principle of the matter that this particular buyer, they didn't want to move into a place where there was an HOA. So, they came back to us and, were asking us about it. And we did cite in our policy, hey, HOAs are not a part of our title insurance policy, which we don't want to be hard-nosed about it, but it really is omitted from our policy. So that's why I like to bring it up, so people know that. So, okay, moving on to page 8. Any questions so far? Let me check the chat.
I'm watching it for you.
You're watching it? Thank you. Any questions? You guys have any? Okay, good. Am I going too fast or am I good? Good?
You're
Okay.
good.
All right, so on page 8, line 326 to 349, 16A is saying closing services will be provided by, so this isn't a completely different place than a typical, like in the title company handling escrow and closing is this. So it's just in a really random spot. So I just like to to share that for you guys. And then it's talking about lines 330 through 337. It's talking about selling marketable title and the different things for that. And then this goes on to talk about the buyers advise that the seller may not be fully aware of the true extent of the ownership of such rights and interest, which is the whole purpose of getting a title search, right? We're going to show you all of the things attached to the property. The thing that I do like about this is it does state that the search is only going back, well, ours goes back 42 years. This is saying a 40-year title exam. It does tell them that. So it is putting them on notice. Hey, if there's something in the records past the 42-year mark, it's not going to be cited in a typical title insurance policy. So I do like that they show that. And if your client wants an exam further back, let's just say they're buying a farm that's been in the same family for like 100 years. And they say, hey, we want a 100-year search. We can absolutely do that. It'll be a little bit more of a cost, but no big deal. We can do that if they want to find anything that they can find on this property. Okay. Next, we're going to go to page 9. This is the juicy stuff. Okay.
Ooh,
This
you're
is-
not already in the juicy stuff?
We are not in the juicy stuff yet. Yeah, this is the juicy stuff. Okay, so lines 350 to through 353. Say that 5 times. This is talking about title defects and the closing date. So what this means is if something comes back and there are severe title defects that are going to basically not allow us to close on time, this is pointing out, hey, you've got a certain amount of days to get everything figured out. The thing that is different about this is this putting it right here on day 1 of the contract. Normally, if we come back to the clients and we say, hey, we've got some title issues, clearing is going to take a lot longer, we think this is going to be delayed, then you would do an addendum to the contract stating, hey, we're going to go out 15 days, 30 days, whatever we think is appropriate. This is putting it right here on day 1. So it's kind of like on day 1, like you only have so many days type thing. Not saying that you can't do an addendum after that. You can certainly do an addendum after that, but it's almost putting, I think, a little bit more pressure on the seller to maybe work a little bit more quickly, and candidly putting more pressure on us as the title company, right? Like we know, oh, this contract is legit going to expire unless an addendum's done. So were you gonna did you have a question?
Well, I was trying to figure out, you're saying from the day it goes under contract or from the day that the defect is found? Date of close. Mutually agree to extend the closing date by 7 days.
So to me, this looks like it's an extension
Yeah. If the end result
past
is
the
date of
closing
closing,
date. Yeah, so it doesn't really mean, hello, welcome. It's not really stating when it's found.
Yeah.
It's
I
just,
see, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so, but great question. I mean, yeah. Okay, so the really juicy stuff for us anyways is starting at line 354. Okay, so this is going to be the part that is brand new to you guys, okay? So this is asking about title insurance, and it's saying, it's giving some information, some background on title insurance, and then it's asking you guys as the agents to walk through this with your clients and have your clients choose, do they want an owner's policy? So that's the standard one, that's the top left, or to the right of that, the Alta homeowner's policy, which is the enhanced, or below that, buyer elects not to attain any policy of title insurance, okay? So this is putting some liability on you guys as agents who are not title agents, by the way. Like this is like from the title insurance perspective, this is like, it's just really, really, really hard for you guys. So I'm going to give you guys some ammunition to put in your arsenal of when your clients ask you these questions, you can say, okay, this isn't my lane, but here's some information. Okay. So we're going to go over this next, but we've got the hidden risks, and then we've got the difference, the policy comparison and the supplementals for you guys to look at. So the biggest thing to note is that enhanced policy, which is what the Keller Williams legacy contract has, is it has like 15 to 20 additional things that it's going to protect the new owner for. in title insurance. Also, it's a 15% increase to their premium. Okay. So not catastrophic by any means from a price perspective, but it is an amount, that your client should know that it is 15%. Okay. Where they have the buyer elects not to obtain any policy of title insurance, I really wish that they would have put something in parentheses here stating, if you are getting financed, the lender will require a lender's policy, because yes, the buyer can choose not to have an owner's policy for sure. But the buyer is still going to have to pay for the lender's policy. And I know that we've talked about this in class here a couple of times. The mortgage policy is $4 per thousand. Okay. So, if they're splitting the title insurance, it's only $288 per thousand, up to $150,000. So why they wouldn't pay a little bit less and get more coverage? It's one of those things that this contract is just, it doesn't give them all the facts. It doesn't give them all of the information. So we thought that this was really important for you guys to know, to be able to share with your clients that, hey, this is actually not in your best interest. And we'll go through some of those hidden risks so you guys can actually share that with your clients of why getting a title insurance policy is in their best interest. Okay.
Can you talk about the difference between the lender's policy versus
Yes.
what the consumer would get?
Absolutely. Okay. So Lynette said, what's the difference between the lender's policy and the owner's policy? So the owner's policy is going to protect the homeowner specifically. It's going to protect their interest and their rights. Okay. Up to the amount of the policy, which is typically the purchase price of the home. Okay. The lender's policy is only going to protect the lender's rights and the lender's amount. So for example, if it is $150,000 house, but their loan is only $100,000, that loan policy is only going to be the value of $100,000, because it's just protecting the asset that the lender has given. Okay, so it's only up to $100,000. If something should happen, let's just say somebody comes back and says, hey, there's a mortgage that wasn't paid off, 10 years ago. Let's just say it was back in the chain of title 2 transfers ago. Okay. Let's just say the buyer opted not to get any owner's title insurance. This is only protecting the lender. So the lender is going to invoke a title claim. They're going to be financially restored to whole, but the owner technically is not. Now, some might argue, well, if the lender's being made whole, if they're clearing that title, doesn't that really help the buyer in the end? Theoretically, yes, it could. But if it's not favorable, a mortgage payoff is a complete different story. Like a mortgage payoff is really easy to track that down, get parties to sign, get a lien, get that filed. Getting a lien release is a lot different than, hey, Aunt Susie showed up and she had interest in this property and this was her great grandma's house and she doesn't want to release any kind of interest. So as a title company, we're going to make sure that the lender's taken care of financially, but now it's going to be between the owner and this new Aunt Susie that came up. At their own cost, the buyer is going to have to litigate and figure out how to make it right, either financially with Aunt Susie, or now they literally are sharing a property with Aunt Susie. And it just becomes a nightmare all the way around. So you're protecting the interest, the lender's interest is protected, but the buyers, the new owners of them. Does that help answer?
Well, yeah, and then I guess if the loan is paid off,
Yeah.
then or very little is still owed on the loan. But then somebody came forward with a claim and you as the homeowner.
So
I guess I'm just trying to think that through.
okay, so you're saying like after the mortgage is paid
Yeah,
off?
once the mortgage is paid off and there's
Okay.
something that's found.
Yeah, and if there's something that's found, then it's at the buyer's own expense that they would have to litigate that and figure out how to make it right. Now they can always hire an attorney to help track down errors if something needs to be signed off. They can have a deed created and have, in this scenario, Aunt Susie sign off on her rights. But Aunt Susie, if she truly feels like she owns this property or she was bequeathed something from great grandma, she's going to want some sort of financial compensation, right? Like if she's showing up 10 years later, is she really just going to walk away? I don't know. I mean, everybody has got different thoughts and feelings and emotions. And so they could show up 30 years later and have a demand for something. So does that help
Yeah,
your
yeah,
question?
yeah.
Do we have any questions in the chat about that? Okay. So we will go through the hidden risks in the policy comparison, but I do just want to go through lines 360 to 363 real fast. It does say if a title insurance policy and title search are selected, the cost shall be paid as follows. And so it's asking you guys again to negotiate who's paying what. Typically in this area, it's 50-50 between the buyer and the seller. And they're having you guys negotiate it. So if you love to negotiate and you just love like getting in there and doing all the things, you might love that this is right here. If you like it to be just nice and clean and simple and everybody is happy and kumbaya, then this might like make you feel uncomfortable. So I'm not an agent. But nonetheless, it can complicate your deal, right? Now you're having people negotiate on different things. They're wanting you to get, closing costs. If, all these if then scenarios, they need closing costs on all of the things. So, if you have a buyer that's really skinny on their funds, I mean, maybe you're checking that the seller is paying the entire closing costs. I don't know. But at any rate, any questions about that? No? Okay, those are the juicy bits from the Ohio State contract. So now what
And
I'm,
normally, if we just wanted to follow practice, right, we would check the bottom line, seller shall pay 50, and we would write in 50%.
50%, yep.
And then can you leave the next part blank, or do you have to fill something in there?
Okay, so this is my thought. I'm not an agent or a broker, but remember this is a legal contract and we don't want blanks. So I would just either put a line or an NA or something,
You don't have to put an amount in there.
no.
We don't, the regular, our pre-printed policy
Says-
doesn't have an amount.
Right.
like a cap.
It says like split equal between buyer and seller, I think is the exact language. So yeah, so if you put 50%, then as the title company, that's what we will do. We will just follow suit with the 50% rule. So, or the seller can tell you, hey, I'll pay X amount of dollars for it. So, okay, so let me in slideshow, and I'm going to go down here to the KW contract. Is this still showing up, the contract? Okay, good. I can't really see what you guys see. So sometimes I just see my face, which is kind of like,
If you look behind you, you can see it.
I just see a white screen.
Turn around.
Not
We got you. Not that you want to turn around while you're talking.
You haven't had her coffee.
Yeah, I haven't had coffee. You know what? I'm just going to go with that. I haven't had my coffee.
Accepting it though, you were a witness.
I know.
I didn't want to make you go get coffee. That felt weird. Okay, let's move this up here. Okay. All right. So I did. Okay, it is highlighted. Hooray. Okay. So lines 12 through 14, seller agrees to pay buyer broker commission. Oh, I just wanted to point this out because I just love that they have a separate line item here for the buyer's broker commission at closing. This makes our lives a lot easier. So thank you for that. I just highlighted the part about the escrow, confirm of the escrow money in there. I don't know why I have that highlighted.
You have a new contract.
Well, this
This
is
is
the
it.
one.
This is it.
Oh, I thought it said, it had a date or within 72 hours now.
I think it might, where does it talk about earnest money? Like maybe up higher on the top lines?
It does have a time, 72
Oh,
hours.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
72 hours. Yep.
Yeah, that's new.
Yeah. So, and I think everybody knows this, but we do have an online portal where your clients can go to Earnest and they can just automatically put their earnest money in there. We can always pick it up here from the office. We can grab it from you guys, any way that you want, we will grab the earnest money. So not everybody is comfortable with the portal. We understand that, but it is nice and fast. Yeah, and it doesn't say business hours, it just says hours. So if
Yeah,
they accept it on a Friday,
I do usually tell my people like, oh, well, for Monday, we got, whatever.
um.
But we're
Okay.
not.
Yeah, you're flexible until you get in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Lines 65 and 66. I just like to point this out. It says if a PIN survey or updated legal description is required to transfer the property, it shall be at the seller's expense. Again, this was something that was not pointed out, typically in other contracts. So it does spell this out that's at the seller's expense. So if this is something that maybe your seller doesn't love, might be something that you amend on your contract, but it is nice that it spells this out. Something to note is if the deed is red stamped that it does need a survey, we want to get on that right away. A survey does take several weeks to do, depending on how busy a surveyor is, depending on who the surveyor is, and it can take a little bit of time. So we don't ever want a closing to be delayed because a new survey is needed. However, I will tell you, every once in a while it happens. So that's just something to keep in your brain. Okay. Okay, here, line 78, this is what we were talking about, evidence of title. In your contract, it does state right here in line 78, it's an also homeowner's policy. So you guys are doing the enhanced version, okay? And then it does say seller shall pay for the cost of the title search, and the parties shall share equally the cost of the evidence of title, including the cost of the title insurance premium. Okay, so yours does have it directly in the contract that it's split between, okay? And then the line 83, endorsements requested by the buyer or by the buyer's lender shall be at the buyer's expense. And that's pretty typical. The buyer is paying those endorsements, but I do like how it spells that out. So there's no wiggle room to, put that onto the seller, any of those endorsements. So any questions about that part? No?
We always just point out to our cash buyers that like a lender's gonna require a location survey.
Yeah.
As you're a cash buyer, you may want. And we recommend a location survey, we had somebody with 7 feet of driveway that was someone else's when they went to sell it, and he was a cash buyer,
Yeah.
not with us originally. So
Yeah.
I just feel like, you don't have to get it, but
Oh, yeah.
I want you to know.
Yes. Yeah. Great comment. Lynette was talking about if you're a cash buyer. So a location survey is not required. Like if your deed is not stamped, on the seller side that it needs a new survey. A survey is not required for title to transfer. Most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time it's required by the lender. But if it is a cash buyer, it's not required. But to Lynette's point, it is a really good idea to say, hey, you want to know what's on your property, if anybody's encroaching onto your space, if you have anything encroaching onto theirs. Good fences make good neighbors, and good boundary lines just make sure everybody's on the same page with that. So it is, I think the price is $220 now for a location survey. So absolutely good recommendation if you have a cash buyer. Down here on line 96, this is where we were talking about that CAUV credit. I love that your contract calls this out. It says the agricultural tax recoupment, if applicable, shall be paid by the seller at closing. So this is just taking care of it ahead of time. And so what you can do is, you can either request a tax and legal from, Sam or myself. We'll get a tax and legal over for you, and we're going to look to see if there's any CAUV credit on the tax auditor's card. If there is CAUV on there, we can go back and we can look and see what would the recoupment amount be. So we're going to call the county and we're going to ask them. Sometimes they'll list it right there on the auditor's card. Sometimes it's not quite accurate. But we're going to ask them, hey, what is the CAUV recoupment? And you can, if you want to make it negotiable, you can, but your contract does just kind of shift that liability, which, taxes are paid a complete year in arrears. So the liability should be on the seller. So the fact that people got away with so long with the seller not paying that recoupment is kind of mind boggling. So I love that your contract points it out.
Cause I was thinking that's if a buyer is gonna buy it and they're not gonna use it, they're not gonna take the CAUV.
Right? Then
Then it goes back 3
3
years.
years. Yep. So that tax amount that it was, that had
Discounted it.
discounted, their 3 years has to be paid back to the county.
I guess to me though, I feel like if the seller was using that and the new buyer doesn't wanna use it, I kind of feel like why does the seller have to go back now 3 years when they were already using it for that, right? It's the new buyer who doesn't wanna use it for that. I guess from my perspective, I was kind of thinking, I feel like the buyer should take that on if they're not gonna continue to use it as a CAUV.
Well, in one instance, I hear what you're saying, but that's not the new buyer's responsibility to pay the 3 years that the seller owned the property. So, I mean, the seller still owned it. Like, I mean, I guess you could argue it either way, for
And then
sure.
The seller they used it for what they were going to use it for, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
but
yeah, I mean, yes, you could argue either way. You really could. You really could.
I guess it just depends on which side you're on and what is important to everybody.
Yes.
At least you know, at
Yeah,
least I just wanna know what I'm talking about and then whatever, we can work it
Yeah.
out based on what everybody's happy with.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could play that both angles, right?
Yeah.
If you're representing the seller or if you're representing the buyer, you can negotiate either way on
I
that.
kind of feel like as a seller, I'm like, I can't help it that you're gonna not use this credit, but I guess whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
yeah.
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. I think that was it. Let me just run through here and see if there's anything else that I highlighted. I think that's it. Oh, my cell, no more yellow. Oh, dower interest. The one thing that you guys added to this is if the sellers are married, then the seller's spouse must sign this agreement. So for example, let's just say a single person buys a house, as a single person, and then they get married and then they go to sell the house. Technically, the title is only in that one person's name who bought the house, but the person they're married to does have to release dower. So even though they're not in title, they do still have to release dower. And so this contract is just kind of making a point to say, hey, we still need their signature on this agreement because we know that there's a dower interest here. From a title company's perspective, I love that it's pointing this out because there have been several times where somebody has said, oh, well, yeah, I'm married, but they're in Africa or somewhere else. I haven't talked to them in ages. I don't know. Well, if we can't get a hold of the spouse, if we have no way to contact them, this can't be completed. So it's really putting some burden on the seller to contact their spouse to say, hey, like I'm selling this house. It shifts some of that burden, which it should be on the seller, to make sure that they're in communication with this person who has dower interests. So, okay, I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Okay, any questions on the contracts? No? Okay, so now we're going to shift to the policy comparison. Did you get a handout? You did? Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in pretty good here. Can you guys read that okay? Well, you guys have a handout. You don't need to read it. For all of you guys online. All right. So in the chat, for anybody that's online, if you guys can just pop in your email as soon as the class is over, I will make sure that you guys get a PDF of all of these things that we went over. So you guys can have this and save it in your files. Okay. Okay, so from a policy comparison, when we're talking about the standard owner's policy versus the Eagles or the enhanced policy, this is something that you can share with your clients so that they know, hey, a standard policy, which is on everybody else's contract, covers lines 1 through 8, and the enhanced policy, which is on KW Legacies, that lines 1 through 35. That's what it covers. Okay, so 1 through 8, we'll kind of go through 1 through 8 specifically. So if someone else owns an interest in the title, if a document is not properly signed. Oh, we have a question in the chat. Hold on.
It's just the email.
Oh, it's just the emails. Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks. Whoopsie. Sorry. Okay. If a document is not properly signed, if something is forged, fraudulent, or is signed under duress, if it's a defective recording of any document, if there are any restrictive covenants, if there's a lien on your title search because of a mortgage, a judgment, tax or special assessment, a charge by the homeowners association, title is unmarketable, there isn't legal access, so they don't have ingress or ingress, mechanics lien protection. Oh, wait, no, sorry, stop. Not mechanics lien protection, just legal access. Okay, so these are the main things that you're going to see on the regular policy. Okay, so what this means is we've done a search and we've cleared everything out in the chain of title that we have found. Okay, and let's say something pops up later. Okay, so something pops up, let's just say number 3. We find somebody finds that there is a forgery or there's fraud in something that was filed. Something that has happened before. Somebody comes to the closing table. They propose that they're husband and wife. Husband brings forward his ID. The proposed wife brings forward her ID. And it comes to find out she is not actually the wife. She's the mistress or the girlfriend on the side posing as the wife to the guy. And she signs everything. Okay. Believe it or not, this has happened before. Not to us, but our underwriter, you know, we have all these CE classes that we have to go to. And so they bring forward all the juicy cases for us. So this happens. So let's just say that happened. That would be a title claim, right? You could go back and you could say, hey, there was forgery on these documents. All right. So this is just showing you all of the things that the regular owner's policy is going to cover. And you can see the enhanced policy. If we start with line 9, it's obviously going to cover 1 through 8. And then starting at line 9, it's going to cover some more things. Some things that I think are most notable, the unrecorded easement. So an easement is a permission given from to homeowners to say, hey, I give you permission to use my driveway. I give you permission to do this. I give you permission to do that. Well, if an easement is out there, let's just say I'm a neighbor to somebody and there's an easement between us, but it never gets recorded. And somehow that unrecorded easement is infringing on my rights as the new owner of the property. Let's just say, for example, I didn't know there was an easement for a shared driveway and I want to move the driveway. I don't really like where it's at on my yard. I want to move it to the other side, but nobody recorded the shared driveway easement. Well, under that extended homeowners policy, you can go back. It would be a claim. You could say, hey, here's the easement. Somebody produces it, right? We've got it. Both parties have signed it. It just wasn't recorded. And we can say, hey, here's an easement. And then the title insurance company would have to figure out a way to make that right. So either it's a financial benefit to some party or, you know, I don't know, we would do something with the driveway. But that's an example of how something would have to be made right from an unrecorded easement. A post policy forgery, any of these post policy things, these are really interesting because title insurance policy, in fact, is anything that has happened before the property was transferred. So the biggest benefit, I think, to the enhanced policy is that it is helping you with anything that happens after the policy is written. So after your clients move into the house. So let's see here, for example, I'm trying to think of something that, okay, a post policy encroachment. Let's just say after your client moves in, an encroachment pops up, it would cover that. So you find out, oh, the neighbor's fence is really on my property. Oh, okay, well, that would be a claim. So the title company would come in, they would have to move the fence or, you know, pay some sort of monetary amount to make up for the fact that there was fence on the property. Now, we've already done our search, we've already cited it, but for some reason it pops up post policy, okay, after they've moved in. A post policy cloud on title. Let's just say we've already done our title search. Everybody's already moved and then something happens afterwards. So, I'm just trying to think, maybe some random thing gets recorded, like a mortgage, let's just say it's a mortgage that gets posted on there. That's a post policy thing that they can go back. That would be a title claim. Even though it happened after the title policy, after they moved in. So the title policy, think of it like if I move in today, my policy is basically from like today and then backwards. Okay. But post policy would be like if somebody filed something a week from now, a week after I moved in, on their regular policy, it wouldn't cover that. But on this enhanced policy, it would. Okay. Number 33, I think, is a really good one too. Violations of building setbacks. So several times we see throughout when we get a survey that a house has been built, and then let's just say the building setback line is 10 feet or 20 feet off of the road. And all of the neighbors on a particular street have said, you know what, I want a front porch. Maybe they didn't have a front porch, or they want to extend their front porch. And so they put a big, beautiful 2-tiered covered front porch. Well, now it's going past the setback line of what the county has said they're allowed to build on. Well, it's improved the value of the house. The county's getting more taxes. They're not going to come and knock on the door and say, hey, you've got to take off your porch. Well, every time that property transfers, the survey is going to show that it is against the setback line. Okay. Well, let's just say the county does decide to come back to the client, the new owner, and say, hey, you know, I know this porch has been here for 30 years, but now you have to take the porch off because all of a sudden, from a zoning perspective, now we want that setback line adhered to. So they would cover that from a title insurance policy. A lot of these, pardon me, I won't go through every single one. I just wanted to point out the ones that were, you know, kind of bigger. Any questions on the enhanced policy and what something could mean as you're looking over those? Anybody have any questions on those? No? Okay. But yeah, you guys feel free to use this in, you know, any of your listing presentations or when you're working with your buyers, just to be able to show them the difference. Okay. The next one that we're going to go on, how are we doing on time? Sam, do we go to just to noon?
12:30.
We do go to 12:30. Oh, look at me doing so good on time. You guys aren't asking very many questions. All right. Okay. So hidden risks. A lot of times clients will ask, well, do I need title insurance? Why do I need title insurance? And, you know, if they're doing the search, you know, doesn't that just cover me? And they'll see in there, you know, especially if they're getting financed, they see the little portion in there about, you know, the owner's coverage being optional. So we put together this little info sheet for you guys to use so you can share with your clients. Hey, these are some of the hidden risks that could come up from title insurance. So obviously, yes, we're going to do a search and we're going to show you everything that we find. We're going to clear anything that we can find. But even after some searches, things can come up. There can be hidden things that happen. Just like in the case of that easement, sometimes people won't record something. I just came across something the other day. We were working on a pre-start for an auction company, and it turns out that there's an unrecorded lease agreement between two parties, like a land contract. Luckily, they came forward, so we sent them our search and the report because this particular auction company, well, all auction companies, they show the report ahead of time so people can know what liens are associated with the property. And he said, oh, there's an unrecorded land contract. So we needed to add that to our report so that people would know, hey, this land contract has to be terminated. But if we didn't know about it, let's just say the auction company didn't know about it and somebody bought that property and it moved forward, that land contract is still valid, even though it wasn't recorded. You know, two parties signed it, so they could come forward and, you know, that would be an issue. So That's an example of a hidden risk. So these things, right here, let me put this on view. I should have done this before. Here we go. It's probably a little cleaner for you guys. Okay. Okay, so this first one, false impersonation of a true owner. We've already talked about that, right? Somebody comes in and says, yep, I'm the wife. Nope, no, you're not. That's a hidden risk. Confusion caused by similar names. We see this all the time, mostly with like credit card companies. They're going to slap a lien on every Lynette Kelly that they can find, okay, because they want their money. Forged deeds and other documents. Man almighty, you guys, it is amazing how many times people try to forge documents. And they do it because, well, I don't know why they do it, but a lot of times we see it's because like they can't get a hold of somebody. And so they say, oh, well, I'm just going to forge this document because it's faster and it's quicker and we can get this deal done. Well, that's not good for anybody. Clerical errors in public records. So we see this a lot. There's a lot of errors because there's a lot of humans, right? We're humans. People who work at the county are humans. And so sometimes there are just errors. And so as a title company, you know, we're doing our best to search all of those public records, but and find any mistakes, but every once in a while, something pops up. So I wouldn't say that this is a funny one, but probably one of the ones that sticks out in my head most notably is the county had mixed up the address of two neighbors. So they had it as the house's addresses were mixed up. So basically, neighbor A was paying the mortgage for neighbor B and vice versa. They were paying each other's mortgages technically because everything from the deed to the auditor's card, the mortgage note, everything had it backwards because of a clerical error inside of the county records. So this was a big, big, big title claim, okay, with our underwriters. So they had to go back and from a rewinding perspective, that deep, it's really, really challenging. And I won't get into the weeds because you guys would fall asleep, but it took them months to sort it out and get it fixed. But could you imagine if those people didn't have any kind of title insurance? I mean, I'm paying Lynette's mortgage and Lynette's paying my mortgage. What if Lynette's house was like way more expensive than mine? I'd be on the hook paying her mortgage and she'd be like, see you later, sister. Right? Like your mortgage is less than mine. So long, sucker. Not that, I mean, there was no malicious intent on either party in this situation. And I know Lynette would never do that, but
I'm happy to pay your gigantic mortgage payment, Andrea.
but it happens, you know, so that's probably the most notable one. Undisclosed or missing errors. This is one that we find a lot. So for example, somebody has different errors. We find this when people have a lot of children, or if they've been married multiple times and there are multiple children, and they don't make any kind of allowance, like in a will or anything to give direction on, like, who does this house belong to? Who does this estate belong to? And who's in charge here? So, you know, maybe they got maybe everybody else's signatures, but maybe they missed somebody because they're a minor. You know, a minor can't sign a deed. They can't sign off. So who signs on behalf of the minor? Well, whoever is in charge of that minor has to sign off on behalf. Well, maybe then they missed that minor because for that exact reason, because they were minor, they didn't think that they had to get their signature. So this minor child turned 18, all of a sudden, ding, 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 guess what? They own a portion of that property because they never signed off, or so nobody signed off on their behalf, okay? So undisclosed or missing errors, big deal. Unpaid child support lien, unpaid taxes, all of those things, you know, a lot of times people think that child support liens don't attach to them, and they do. So anytime we're transferring a property, we have to take care of any kind of child support liens, any kind of state, local, or federal liens. Those do have to be taken care of. And it's on the buyer side and the seller side, just so you guys know. So if the buyer has got some big whopping lien out there from the federal government, they're not going to be able to buy a house. They're going to have to set up some sort of a payment plan with the federal government before they can buy it. That was a side note. This has nothing to do with hidden risks, but let's see what else here. Oh, we did talk about unrecorded easements and rights of way. I don't know why people don't have those filed. But for some reason, people don't. Okay, so this is a good one. The invalid documents executed under an expired power of attorney. So, man, a lot of times people think that a power of attorney is good even after somebody is deceased, and that's just not the case. So let's just say you have power of attorney for your ailing grandmother. She's going to pass away, but you're trying to get this house sold really soon. Let's just say she passes away and like tomorrow is your closing date. If you don't tell anybody that grandma passes away, you can show up to the closing table as POA and just sign all the documents on her behalf. Guess what? That's an invalid POA. It doesn't count. That transfer is actually null and void. So this is an example of a hidden risk that could really come back and bite you in the hiney. Signatures of minors or people who are not mentally competent. The mentally competent one, that one is so much more tricky to navigate through. The minors, I mean, it's an age, right? You're either 18 or you're not. The competency one, we train all of our notaries what to look for from a competency standpoint. And unfortunately, sometimes you have family members that are trying to push something through and they just say, yeah, grandma's fine to sign. And, they just kind of make grandma sign stuff. As a company, we have to make sure that they are competent to sign. They're not signing under duress. So that was like lines 1 through 8. One of those was, are they signing under duress? So we're asking them, do you know what you're signing? If we're unsure that this person is, competently sound, we have some questions that we're going to ask them, and we're actually going to delay the closing if grandma or grandpa or somebody is not competently sound because they don't know what they're signing and it's not right. So we're not going to have them sign it. Okay, signatures of people represented as single but who are actually married. We come across this all the time. People who maybe their wife or husband is estranged, and so they say that they're single, and there's nothing in the documents to say that there's somebody like that they're married, but this person's in Africa, and so they just sign everything away, and they say that they're single, and it's happened once or twice to us that somebody lets it slip about their wife or their something, and then we're like, wait, what was that? What? Say that one more time. And then we have to put everything on hold and we have to try to find somebody in Africa. And I use Africa because that's the most recent one that I had to deal with was somebody was in Africa and we couldn't find them. So, and it does delay the closing, but they have to sign. So, if you are, separated, if you're legally separated, you are legally still married and your spouse does still have to sign everything. So that's a big one. Don't buy another house if you're separated because then your wife is going to have to sign off on dower when you sell that house. Wait until your divorce decree is completely done and final before you try to do anything. Otherwise, it's going to be a big old mess and everything is going to get delayed. So any questions about hidden risks? Again, I'm going to send these to you guys so that you guys have a copy of these. I'm checking the chat, make sure there's nothing in here. Okay, I think we're good. Okay. All right, so I did not talk as long as I thought I was going to. And let me just stop sharing the screen. Okay. It's only 12:06.
Will you run through just the difference between marketable title versus?
Clear title?
Yeah.
Yep. Lynette asks, what is the difference between clear title and marketable title? Very, very good question. So, marketable title will say, hey, you still have the ability to use this property, to sell this property. It's not going to encumber you from actually transferring the property. Even though 2 transfers ago, there's an outstanding mortgage. Let's just say it's a 20-year-old mortgage, but the lien release was never filed. Some title companies will say, well, it's still marketable, even though that cloud is still attached to it. They're going to assume the risk and they're going to say, you know what? It's been 20 years. It's already transferred twice. It's still marketable. They can still sell it. So we're going to go ahead and just assume that risk. We're going to transfer the property because let's just say, for example, the mortgage company that mortgage was taken out with 20 years ago, let's just say they went defunct. And it's going to be really hard for them to track down, okay, well, now who owns this mortgage? Who owns that piece of paper? We've got to get a release from them. That takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort. And so there are some title companies that they won't take the time to do that. And so they'll just pass it along and they'll just transfer the property. So it's technically marketable. It can be transferred, even though there's this cloud hanging back from, 20 years ago. When you completely clear the title, which is what we do as a company, we will go all the way back and we're going to take the time and the effort to say, okay, we've got this mortgage out here. It's a cloud on title. We've got to figure out how to get it cleared. Okay. So we've got to go back. We've got to find who is this mortgage company? Who did the paper get sold to? We're going to take that time and that effort. We're going to get the lien release. We're going to get that lien release filed so it's completely clear. So it's a really, really, really big deal. This is probably, I think, one of the most important things that you can ever ask another title company that you're using is, hey, do you guys do clear and marketable title, or are you just doing marketable title? Because this happened, and I think, Lynette, you were in the class when we talked about this situation before. It wasn't something that we closed as a title company, somebody else did. And, they lived in their house for a year and they got a foreclosure notice because of a outstanding mortgage that was out there from, I want to say it was like 10 to 15 years prior, but it was a couple transfers prior. And the title company, they said, you know what, it's still marketable. We're going to assume the risk. It's been a really long time. We're just going to say that they're not going to come back and foreclose on this property. Well, guess what? That company did. They came back and because this is what happened. You've got a company who bought a whole entire portfolio of mortgages. Okay. So you've got a bean counter in Iowa. It takes him years to go through and reconcile all these books. And he says, oh, I don't have a record of this mortgage being paid off. He goes to the county records. There's no lien release of that mortgage being paid off either. So he initiates a foreclosure based on the information that he knows. They weren't even the original mortgage holder. So they don't even have all the data. But if he doesn't see anything filed and they're showing that it was never paid off, he is going to initiate a foreclosure, which is exactly what happened to these poor people. It was somebody that my husband worked with. So they're saying, hey, they're reaching out to me. Hey, can you help us? We don't know what to do here. So I was able to help them get through the steps, and they did file a title claim, and that title company did have to go through and they did have to find the original mortgage holder, get a lien release, get it filed. But those are moments in your life that, this poor guy, he got served a mortgage foreclosure at his work. The sheriff has to come and they have to find you. So they're finding the wife at her house, they're finding the husband at his place of work, and they're serving them. So those are terrible moments, and it wasn't even their fault. But for me, because it was somebody that, my husband knew, and, they're going through this whole ordeal, it really hits home with me, why clear and marketable title is so important and why it's important to ask whatever title company that you're working with. So thanks for asking that question. Any other questions, you guys? Let's check the chat, see if anybody has anything else. I am chatting as a guest. Sweet. No? Okay, so again, if you guys are online and you want to put your email in there, I'll make sure that you get all the supplementals for today's class. And then obviously, if you guys have any other questions or need anything, you know, Sam or I are always available to answer your questions. Hopefully you guys found this class valuable. And if there's anything else that you want us to talk about, let us know. We'll get it on the schedule and we'll do a little class about it. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there is food out there. We've got McAllister's. So please feel free to get some food. Yes. Yeah, just have one.
Oh, you know what? I have an